For the last 71 years, Sebring International Raceway has challenged the best road racers on the planet. This weekend, 29 Pirelli GT4 America teams have accepted that challenge here at this 3.6-mile, 17-turn road course where, first and foremost, you must always respect the bumps. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is down there in the pit lane as we get set for the first race of the weekend for Pirelli GT4 America. Just 4 races left in the season, Calvin. Championships up for grabs and an immense challenge awaiting these teams and drivers in just about 10 minutes' time.
What a difference over the last couple of weeks. We've come from the smoothness of Watkins Glen to the bumps that we're renowned for here at Sebring. Iconic venue, so much history here. Some of the drivers in this field and teams have experience here, but for others on their debut, it is quite the eye-opener.
First time for this series now known as SRO America to Sebring International Raceway since 2009, and standing amongst the cars ready to go down on the pit lane is our own Amanda Busick.
Well, guys, it's hard to imagine that there's only 4 races left in this Pirelli GT4 season, and the drivers are ready for today. Race car doors just shut. Kristen Shimchak was high-fiving Kenny Murillo prior to them leaving to get on this track. But as you would expect, at the top of this grid, it is your points leader. You have Kenny Murillo and that team leading in the silver class. And as we rotate around to row number 1, Matt Travis right there, the Pro-Am leader. But what I really want to point out is the BMW. There were some BOP assessments that were changed overnight. I'll let you guys dip into that. But the Stephen Mackler team, they're really making a push here late in the season. They come off of that win in race number 2 in Watkins Glen. I was able to talk to Toby Grahovic here prior to this race, and he said, yeah, there's a battle for second in the points right now, but what we would really like to do is we still have hope. We have hope that we could win the silver class here in GT4. So if they could at least push it to Indy, they'll have a shot at it, maybe.
I will keep an eye on those points tabulations throughout the weekend, that's for sure. It's been a great run of form for Toby and Stephen McAleer in that car, coming off of the win at Watkins Glen. Very nearly 2 wins that weekend. 1 went away due to a technical infraction, but without a doubt, the BMW M4 GT4 has been a strong package, Calvin, over the last several race weekends, and it seems like the officials took note of the fact that it was another weekend that it was shaping up to be BMW dominated, and there was a slight adjustment made last night.
Yeah, essentially the BMWs this morning got a 10-kilogram weight increase, so it's about 22 pounds. So that should bring them back to the field a little bit in terms of their outright pace, but more importantly, it could be a real factor on the long green flag runs there. Early in the day, temperatures are going to ramp up this afternoon to probably hovering around 90 degrees, kind of about 80 right now. So it's a beautiful morning, it feels like, but nonetheless, the heat is a concern. So many of these current breed of race cars, if you start to get the engine overheating a little bit, they immediately kick in with these safety nets, which will kind of take power away a little bit. So you may see in the draft, it's better to be out in clean air versus picking up the advantage of the slipstream, but obviously losing a little bit of engine performance when you do that.
So many stories to watch throughout this 60-minute race, but as always at Sebring, the track itself is a big part of the storyline. Let's get a first-hand view of it with our Porsche track preview.
Hi, my name is Jan Helen with the Porsche track preview here at Sebring International Raceway. Onto the front stretch here at a bumpy Sebring racetrack. Into turn 1, 5th gear, high-speed corner, quick step on the brake, 4th gear, back to power, using up all that track here on the exit, trying not to drop a wheel in the dirt. Into turn 3, down the 2nd gear, left, right, left, into turn 5. Very low grip here at the start of the weekend. Big corner here, big exit onto that back stretch. And then into turn 7, which is one of the slowest corners on the track, 45 mile an hour, so a great opportunity to make some moves. Braking deep here at the 300, down the 1st gear, good apex there, and then back to power, through the S's and into turn 10. Turn 10 again, a hard brake zone, into 2nd gear, and a very bumpy braking here. Hard on the brakes, down the 2nd, and then back to power in this into this long left-hander, really fun corner. Flat out, 3rd, 4th, and then into a tricky brake zone, braking and turning at the same time. Into tower here, using up all that exit, 2nd, 3rd, and then into Bishop, which is one of the quickest corners on the track. 5th gear, flat out, and then into the brake zone for 15. Hard on that apex curb right, using up all the track, apex curb left, and then back on the curb here at the apex of 16. Using up all the track coming onto the back straightaway. One of the most important corners on the track. Long straightaway following that turn 16, and then into 17. Super fun corner, very bumpy on entry and exit. Late on the brakes here, close to the end of the wall. Very bumpy here under the bridge, as you can see, and then back to power, trying to run up as close as you can to that exit wall and back onto the front straightaway.
You heard Jan Halen talk about it several times. The bumpy nature of this track is always a talking point, and every once in a while you'll see someone pop up and say, well, if it's so bumpy, why don't they repave it? But Calvin, no racer wants to see these bumps go away.
No, anyone worth their salt anyway. You want to keep it the same, and the character of the racetrack are the bumps and the multitude of surface changes that you see around this circuit as we traverse here on this second of the formation laps. And I think the real key is with the bumps, when you got good grip, you kind of land and the tire's going to bite. But with the temperatures we're going to see here today, and particularly we talk about those BMW runners with increased weight, they're already talking about the fact on long green flag runs here, they could come back to the pack a little bit. So when you hit those bumps and then you land and the car's sliding versus gripping, that'll be the factor here as we get kind of midway through this run here this morning.
Starting grid coming up on the screen. Let's take you through the first 5 rows at least, starting in the top 10 positions overall. And on pole, Stephen McAleer for Classic BMW. He'll have the Pro-Am points leader, Matt Travis, alongside. There is a chance for Travis and his co-driver, Jason Hart, to clinch if they can come away with enough points here, perhaps even in this race today or certainly tomorrow. Mackay Stevens will start third for Conquest Racing. Kenny Murillo in a Mercedes alongside. Then it's Chris Wilson, fastest of the AM class drivers, but he's got a new co-driver this weekend, John Barry. More on that story as we get through the race. James Clay starts 6th. James Walker, a nice qualifying effort to start 7th overall in the Bimmer World Racing car. Ryan Dexter from Dexter Racing and an Aston Martin alongside. And the 5th row, Michael Miller and Tim Pappas for Automatic Racing and Black Swan Racing, respectively. Great to have Tim Pappas and Jerome Bleekemolen and the Black Swan team back in the field. Just behind them will be this car, though. Sean Quinlan starting the number 119 for Stephen Cameron Racing. He and Greg Leafouge are second in those Pro-Am points. They're 63 points back. They need to stay within 75 in this race if they're going to have a chance to win that title in the final 3 races of the season.
Yeah, they're always potent. They always got potential for a win, and the BMW has proven to be pretty strong here. So for Sean, he's just got to keep it clean here. He's been putting some great performances over the last couple of years, but he's a little bit deep in the pack right now, so this is where it can be a little bit hairy through those first few corners as well, trying to survive.
To see how that balance of performance adjustment affects these BMWs, but still very strong in qualifying as we've seen. That said, a nice mix of machinery up at the front of this field with BMW on pole from Porsche, then a couple of Mercedes. More Mercedes and BMW equipment right behind. Aston Martin very much in the mix as they have been throughout the course of this season. Lamborghini Urus is the safety car. The lights are off as they make their way down the Ullman Straight towards turn 17, Sunset Bend, as it's known here in Sebring, Florida. 60 minutes the race distance, driver change right around the halfway mark. No tire changes though. You got to look after those Pirelli P0s, whether you're the starting driver or the finishing one. Here comes the field of 29 cars through the final turn, making that long run down the pit straight, looking for Tom Hansing in the flag stand. He's got the green flag in hand. We just wait to see it displayed, and it is fanning out immediately. Calvin, this is the drag race to turn 1. A great start for McAleer.
Look at that deep in the pack there, 5-6 wide. You got a funnel now as you get down towards that concrete wall on the inside. Great start there by our pole sitter, Stephen McAleer. Takes the lead easy. But look at this, Matt Travis under pressure now. Here comes Kenny Murillo to his flank. Mackay Stevens looking down at the inside. That's Christensen corner, turn 3.
Oh, big slide there for Murillo, somehow able to save it as it goes up and over the curb, but it cost him 2 positions. Slotting inside comes Stevens as well as Chris Wilson, and we've got cars all over the place behind.
Yeah, Yeah, the slowest corners on the racetrack there are the kind of that turn 3 through turn 5, but it's very tricky there to not roll too much speed, particularly these tires not up to temperature yet.
Mackay Stevens looking racy early. He's looking outside, then inside of the points leader in Pro-Am, Jason Hart. Stevens and Colin Mullen, they're part of a silver class lineup. Their class leader is the overall leader. That's Stephen McAleer, who has sprinted away of the battle for second.
Yeah, Stevens and Mullen coming off for a pair of runner-up finishes at our last championship event at Watkins Glen, so they have a lot of pace in that Conquest Racing Mercedes. But look at McAleer. But we anticipated this in terms of the pole position and the 1 lap pace. The real key is going to be after about 5 laps. What do we see then in terms of the delta between these manufacturers running up front?
Now that's a picture-perfect start, though, for Matt Travis. Yes, he'd love to be leading overall, but he's got a nice firm lead in the Pro-Am class. The next closest in class is James Clay, all the way back in 6th. So that is exactly what he's looking to do as he and Jason Hart try and clinch that title.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, 63-point lead. They need 75 at the completion of this race to seal the deal. They won the first 5 races of the championship season, but haven't won in 5 races. So let's see what sort of performance they can put in here today.
Well, this is a team and a driver pairing looking to exercise some championship demons. This is the 3rd straight year they've had such a great start to the championship. The previous 2 instances, though, they've lost it in the last race of the year. They've hoped now that they've built a lead that's insurmountable with 4 races to go. We'll see if that's how it plays out. Coming around to complete lap number 1 at Sebring, it is Stephen McAleer leading. Matt Travis running a stout second, and he's got Mackay Stevens right behind.
Yeah, big move there by James Clay as they went down Ullman straight there towards Sunset Bend, but Kenny Murillo just defended vigorously there to the inside. This is the 52 car. The Auto Technique machine been very strong of late.
Tom Capizzi driving. John Capestra Dubet's the co-driver, and right now Capizzi trying to fend off the challenge from Paul Terry, who slips up to the left-hand side. That becomes the inside here. Is he up alongside enough? Capizzi gives him some room.
But he was getting a little bit squirrely there as you went through turn 5, so let's see if he keeps it together and maintains that gap.
Looks like we see Terry able to slide through, and not just Terry, but also the automatic racing car, Michael Miller, able to come inside, and now he's on the attack. This is a team with a lot of experience here at Sebring in GT4 competition.
I thought Capizzi was going to struggle to keep the grip there. He looked a little bit wide there as they went side by side through that series of slow corners.
Keebler took this spot. Terry trying to get it back. Keebler has to go defensive here into the braking zone. Able to keep Terry at bay for now.
Terry teaming up with Owen Trinkler at Watkins Glen, and he'll remain as his co-driver through the end of this championship season. Starting the year with Brandon Davis alongside.
Trinkler and Terry were introduced when each of them was driving for Reardon Racing, just not together. But Owen made a big impression on Paul and has stepped in ably when called to so far this year. And as you said, Calvin will complete the season. Second place in the Pro-Am points is that orange and blue BMW from Stephen Cameron Racing. Currently Sean Quinlan driving, and the rapid Greg Leafouche waiting in the wings. He'll take over at the halfway mark.
Talking to Owen Trinkler about the performance of the Aston Martin, he said it's a really solid race car. It does everything well, so they're looking for big things, and we'll have to wait and see if they're going to be teamed up for next year as well. This is the time in the year when all of those discussions are going on about what is everyone going to do for the 2022 season. Side by side there. Stevens alongside Travis as they head down this front stretch.
Travis will have the inside, but you can make an outside pass work here in turn 1.
You can, but if you get a little bump right as it gets a little bit gnarly there right through the apex, Travis gives him plenty of room. He's thinking big picture right now. Can't afford to get too aggressive.
And for Stevens, he wants to get aggressive here because he can see the class leader running away. That's Stephen McAleer up at the front. Interesting mix of cars here from the perspective of the class. It's Pro-Am as far as Matt Travis is concerned. Behind is the silver class car of Mackay Stevens, and then the Am class leader, Chris Wilson, right there in the Capstone Mercedes.
Wilson's got a new teammate this weekend. Last minute change. John Berry's going to be filling in for John Allen.
And John Allen had an accident earlier this weekend. Nothing too serious, but he said, you know, he had a diagnosis of COVID earlier this year, and he said he's just not quite there mentally. He decided to stand down John Barry is someone who he credits for getting him into motorsports in the first place, a big supporter. They work together as well, and John comes to so many of the races that it was easy. When John Allen decided he wanted to step out for the weekend, he turned to his buddy and said, "You're in, you're up." And I think we got an update on that from the pit lane.
And an update directly from John Allen on this driver change here this weekend. We just updated the viewers that you decided to step out. Talk about the relationship with John and how you knew he was the right fit for the car.
So John is the guy that actually introduced me to car racing. So he's to blame for all this. It's awesome that I get a chance to give him an opportunity to drive at this level. So I'm really excited for him. You
made the elected decision to pull yourself out of the car. As you sit by and watch along your car race here at Sebring, what's going through your mind?
Well, it's a new role for me this year as team principal. I'm a driver, but I also am the team principal. So it's my job to put the best team on the field, you know, and I felt it was appropriate to bench myself because I just was struggling. So, yeah. So I had a little issue in practice on Thursday. I got overheated, got dehydrated, and you know what? These are tough conditions. It's very hot, very humid. I'm a Colorado guy, so I'm used to cool and no humidity.
Keep an eye. The Capstone Motorsports team is currently in that #1 position in the AM class, but take a look at that Supra, guys. They've fallen positions here. You know that they're keeping an eye on that as well.
No doubt, Smooth Racing has been strong all season. Had a great conversation with John Allen earlier the weekend and kind of talking about that new team principal role. And he said, you know, if I can drive in the future, that's great, but I really want to build something. And this team has been so instrumental in the University of Alabama Engineering School, coming up with a motorsports engineering internship that's actually led to a minor being added to the curriculum at the university, and I think he takes a great deal of pride in that, maybe even more so than just the driving. As Chris Wilson, we saw drop a spot there to James Clay, but still the leaders in the AM class.
Yeah, and I think that's really the factor, right, is trying to just have a good solid run here, turn it over to John Berry with as big of a gap as he can create. Right now it's Miller sitting there, 09 machine, second in AM, but 10th overall. And that gap is around about 9 seconds between the AM leader and the car currently second in class.
Speaking of Smooth Racing, right on cue, Kevin Conway driving his number 68 Toyota Supra. The car that's being pressured by the Heart of Racing Aston Martin. And Gray Newell driving that car, a winner for the first time ever in racing at all, as a matter of fact. The last time out at Watkins Glen, looking
nice
racing
there,
here.
Yeah, just really feeling it out. I really like how Gray is coming on this season. Showed a lot of promise in terms of his pace. Ian James's teammate was very high on his abilities, but learning racecraft was going to be the key to this season. And boy, he had a breakout party at Watkins Glen, run-up finish day 1, winning day 2. A little bit of help with the 15 car suffering a drive-through penalty for being shy on their minimum stop time, but nonetheless, great performance by him. They'll be very excited about getting that first win before the end of his debut season.
He was still on cloud 9 when I bumped into him at the paddock, bumped into him at Long Beach last weekend, and had a big smile on his face too. Just a really up-and-coming youngster, and that was a breakthrough weekend for sure, because their previous best finish on the season was 7th. So to go from that to a 2nd and then a win is big time. Just behind them is the Random Vandals Racing BMW, that green BMW. They were in the news. They announced that Connor Daly would be driving with them at the Indianapolis 8-hour in a couple of weeks. So cool to have some IndyCar representation, and I don't think that will be the only driver with some IndyCar roots. We already know Pippa Mann will be involved, and I've heard of one other who might be in the field. Not a current IndyCar driver, but one with some recent experience. So we'll keep an eye on that.
The Random Vandals team, they might get preferred parking for that event, I think.
They might. Connor Daly, of course, the stepson of IMS President Doug Bowles, if you're missing that joke.
7 car had a bit of a spin and a nudging at the tire barriers in qualifying this morning, but having a decent run here with Owen behind the wheel, 3rd in the AM class. So they're splitting that 09 car that we mentioned and the 4 car of Kevin Conway that we showed on screen with that Smooth Racing Toyota Supra.
Great battles all throughout this field. Everywhere you look, this is Tim Pappas. Mentioned Black Swan Racing is back. It's been a few weekends since we've seen them. Tim, a veteran for sure. And when he turns that car over, we'll want to keep an eye on it because Jerome Bleekemolen, who is fast no matter what you put him in, Tim's longtime co-driver, will be taking over when we get to the mandatory pit window.
Yeah, good solid run right now going for Tim. He has experience here at Sebring at the 12 hour, and he currently runs 4th in that Pro-Am class. And again for him is just keeping it tidy, keeping it clean, trying to stay within sight of those leaders to give his teammates, you said, Jerome Bleekemolen, super fast, and he'll be on a mission. You know, you give those guys a sniff of a win, boy, they're going to try and grab it.
Tom Capizzi in the 52. We were introduced to him earlier in this race. Right now being pressured by Tim Barber. It's a Pro-Am entry against a silver entry. And Tim taking a peek to the inside, but has to fall back in line. It is a slightly different paint scheme on the blue and pink TFB CCR BMW, and that is an homage to the co-driver Cole Corallo's mother. And the team rolled out that special pink paint scheme as a surprise to everyone this weekend when they showed up here at Sebring.
Looks cool, certainly stands out. You're not going to be missed, but you're not going to hide, so twofold on that one.
That's right. Tim Barber, as he's done all year long, wringing the neck of that race car, looking mighty racy. Taking a peek to the inside into the hairpin, one of the great passing zones around this Sebring racetrack, which has a few to pick from, actually.
It does, and I think particularly as we get a little bit deeper into this race and the cars start to slide a little bit more, that starts to open up some other opportunities as well. Flat out through here, this is heading down towards turn 10. We watch McAleer. Fastest lap was a 2:13.7. He set that a couple of laps ago, but still running laps about 3 to 4 tenths clear of the chasers right now, which right now is Travis, 2nd overall, 1st in Pro-Am, and Mackay Stevens right there with him.
Yeah, that lap for McAleer was the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, and it's held. Subsequent to that, this is a great drive, though, for Matt Travis. He's the AM in a Pro-Am lineup, so not as experienced, doesn't make his living driving race cars, up against someone who doesn't have as much experience, admittedly, but is a well-thought-after talent, and Mackay Stevens, part of that silver class lineup, a guy who was identified by Jeremy Shaw through the Team USA scholarship and represented the United States in a number of major Formula Ford races in England. This is going back a while, though, and he's not done much racing since, but this program here with Conquest Racing and John Farrow, the Canadian businessman who is behind this program, trying to identify young talent in need of a boost. Well, they did a shootout, and Stevens and Mullen were two that came from that, and they've been great all season long. They made their debut at Road America, and they've only been off the podium once in class.
Yeah, and there was talk of rotating drivers through that car, but I believe both drivers are now set through the end of this championship season. You see Travis there, a little bit wide there through turn 3, Christensen corner, named after Tom Christensen, the legendary sports car driver, 9-time winner at Le Mans. I think he's had 6 or 7 wins here, class, and 6 overall, is it, in 7 class. But a lot of success here as well at Sebring. Stevens
has a run through Big Bend. This is the run down into the hairpin. Travis trying to cover the inside. He's going to fight, even though this is not for class position. They'll have a compromised exit here, Calvin, so can Stevens get the run as they make it the drive down to turn 10?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Matt's just got a little bit out of rhythm or whether the car's going away on him, but I think if the car's going away, I'd give up this position, just follow Mackay Stevens for a little bit. You don't want to risk any argy-bargy here and suddenly getting turned around and plummeting down the order. Effectively, if they get a 12-point gain on the chasers here at the end of this race, the championship will be theirs. So you know that Matt is super smart, and he's got to be thinking of that big picture.
And again, this is not for class position, so it would not affect points if the pass was made. It's worth reiterating that. The points are paid out due according to finishing order in class, not by overall finishing position. So really, there's nothing to gain except that track position, and they have a solid lead right now in Pro-Am with the next closest car, James Clay, down in 4th, running some good laps, making some progress. But I think you got to make a decision, you know, how much risk is it worth taking at this stage in the game?
Well, a lot of it is knowing new drivers, but for Mackay Stevens, he hasn't done a ton of races in this championship, so I'm not sure how well Matt Travis knows him and how much he's raced with him yet to identify, is this guy going to be a big risk or is he going to play it clean and safe? So these are all the factors you have to determine when you're racing like this.
Saw James Clay running there in the 4th spot. That BMW coming through the screen. Then the Mercedes-AMG GT4 of the AM leader, Chris Wilson. And right behind, Kenny Murillo. Dropped a couple of spots so far in this race, but still a nice solid run. 3rd place in the silver class.
See that Porsche, that Nola Sport car looking really solid. Spoke to Matt's teammate yesterday, Jason Hart, and he said the car is absolutely dialed in. They were frustrated by the times they were seeing in practice, but with that little BOP adjustment to the BMW, suddenly they qualified very well for both of the races here today.
That's right. Started on the outside of the front row for this one with Matt Travis, and Jason Hart was up inside the top 5 in his qualifying for race 2 tomorrow. Taking a look at John Allen, big smile on his face. Not used to seeing him not in the fire suit, but it does seem like he's getting used to that role as he watches his race car there.
Not used to seeing his smile. You normally got more of a beard.
That's right. So if you missed it or just forgot, at Watkins Glen, they had their first ever overall pole thanks to Chris Wilson, and in celebration, he decided he was going to shave that big old beard off, which we kind of joked was like a ZZ Top type beard.
Yeah.
He told me that he actually met one of the ZZ Top guys, and that was his inspiration to grow it out.
Really?
Yes.
He did a good job. He does look like one of those guys. So he looks a bit more like you now, though. Kind of trim and
That's
neat.
right. 42 minutes left in this race. First of 2 this weekend for Pirelli GT4 America. McAleer leads Travis by 6.5 seconds. And that fight for second between Travis and Stevens. Then back to James Clay, about 3 seconds behind. He runs in 4th. And right here, you're looking at him. James Clay, Chris Wilson, Kenny Murillo, 4th, 5th, and 6th all together. And it does look like they're starting to reel in Travis, who I believe was passed by Stevens on this lap. And indeed, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen that is, in fact, the case. So Stevens finally found a way by, and now he needs to see if he can make any kind of inroads here on Stephen McAleer.
McAleer putting on another clinic. Just a super strong driver. His fastest lap, 2:13.6, but on not this lap. He just finished the one before. He ran another high 2:13. So the consistency is still there. He was very concerned about these tires going off a little bit and losing pace and dropping back to the field, but I don't know if he's managing pace or not. Certainly the lap time's going to indicate he's just going for it.
Matt Travis continues to lead in Pro-Am, now running 3rd overall, Amanda.
Well, guys, as I was that overtake was happening, I was actually talking to Jason Hart about if he wanted Jason to give up that, get Matt Travis to give up that position, and he said not at all. He was like, that's just another car that someone in our class would have to get around. So that's why I think that car was trying to block Stevens so hard. But it was fun hearing the competitive spirit of Jason Hart of, no, we're not giving up that position that easy.
Well, that's definitely the other side of the equation. It's just how much risk are you willing to take for that track position? And it sounds like they were willing to do so, but Stevens found a way by.
Well, I think the other way of looking at it is they still have such a massive lead, so if it does go all wrong, it's not like they're suddenly in big problems, but it's just an approach. I think if it was me, I'd love to just put it away here today. As you said, a couple of years it's gotten away from them and right at the wire, so I think learning from that experience, try and make sure you really just solidify that championship position and then go racing round 2 here and certainly at Indy for the last 2 rounds of the championship.
They talk about it coming down to the wire at Las Vegas 2 years ago. It was quite literally the last lap of the last race of the season. A position swapped, and that made all the difference. Ultimately, it was Sean Quinlan and Greg Leofouge, who are once again their closest pursuers, that snagged the championship away in that instance back in 2019.
So we've got that Auto Technique pairing of Capizzi and Capastro Dubets. They're kind of tied with Kenton Cook and Brian Putt there in the 2nd position in points. There's a lot of players still in here. It's not like it's just one team they've got to keep their eye on. There's 2 or 3 groups there who could take advantage if that 47 car did have problems.
Less than 5 minutes away from the pit window. And what we typically see strategy-wise on the Saturday race with the AMs starting in the Pro-Am cars, expect to see those Pro-Am cars being early callers to the pit lane. the silver lineups, theoretically at least, the difference between the two drivers in terms of their outright performance should be much smaller, so that can be a bit more flexible with the strategy as they work through the Elias Sabo Andy Lee car. That is a lap down. That's the Audi you see slipping back behind a couple of those cars. Not a great start to the day for them, unfortunately, but that held up James Clay, and that's bringing Chris Wilson into the mix.
Yeah, Clay there gets immediately defensive. He's just going to hug that right side of the road and make Chris go the long way around. There's going to be a battle down in that brake zone. It's a little bit smoother in the middle of the road there, so we'll see what develops here as we go through turn 7.
Wilson trying to hang on the flank of Clay, and James didn't give him a ton of room there at corner exit. You saw the puff of smoke from that contact, but Clay is able to hold on to the spot for now.
So dangerous there if one of those fenders gets into that sidewall of the tire. So easy to cut down the tire, so you have to be careful, even though you don't want to give it up.
Those carbon fiber dive planes can be razor sharp on a rotating Pirelli tire. We've seen it plenty of times throughout the years. Looks like, for now at least, James Clay was able to escape without any disaster stemming from that contact. And don't sleep on Kenny Murillo. He's keeping them honest right there, breathing down their neck in the orange and black Mercedes. That's Murillo right there.
His car looked like it was sliding around a little bit, but maybe they just set the car up with their tire pressures and everything else for the long green flag run here, because he looks a bit more solid now in terms of the balance there. You can see him really carving these corners nicely. Gets that wider entry, and straightening the hands a little bit sooner should get you back to power a little bit sooner coming off the Elman straight.
One thing that teams have been telling me throughout the weekend across all the classes here is that the conditions have a major effect on performance, and some have been kind of caught out by how different the track can be just a few hours after their previous run.
Yeah, it's ever evolving. We got a lot of feedback after the qualifying sessions this morning where drivers and teams were surprised at the amount of grip that the track had this morning, even though it was relatively cool. Not the same balance they ended up with at the end of the day yesterday.
On this battle heating up here between Murillo and Wilson. Again, not a class battle. In fact, all three of these cars in different classes. It's worth noting that the car spec is the same. As Murillo takes a look to the outside, now it's Wilson on the defensive. This is where he was the attacker just one lap ago.
Yeah, just got to get back into a rhythm, regroup. Super slow through here. You're really leaning on the car, trying to get onto the power early, but if it starts to break away on you, so easy to just get that little snap and lose that so important acceleration off that corner.
Wilson trying to go defensive. Murillo looks inside, now coming to the outside, late on the brakes, but can't get up alongside.
Those Mercedes look so strong into that bumpy brake zone. It just kind of, car just settles across those bumps. You don't see the porpoising that you see with some of the other brands out there.
And what does that translate to behind the wheel?
Well, it's just going to make a more consistent contact patch with the tire. I mean, we talk about respect the bumps, but if you can get your suspension set up so you're not literally having the car jump off the ground and maintains that nice platform under braking, that's just lap time.
Should note that Mackay Stevens has not made any significant inroads on Stephen McAleer since making the pass on Matt Travis. It's still an 8.5-second gap from first to second overall. That's also first and second in silver.
See on the inset box there, Kenny Murillo, Ken's dad, and Christian Shimshak there, still with his balaclava on, so going to be looking at another lap here before he can jump into pit lane. Pit window will open in about 40 seconds, so they're probably going to be by the pit entrance before that time comes up on the board. Some drivers like to be set and ready. And they're a very evenly matched driver pairing, so it gives you the option in terms of strategy as to how you want to slice the cake here today.
What were you like when it came to driver changes? Did you want to have 5-10 minutes to prepare and collect yourself, or could you go kind of at the drop of the hat?
Well, I never really ran in a series where you had this pit stop window.
Sure.
So you always wanted to be ready in case there was a caution, and you didn't want that panic where you're looking for your gloves and trying to get everything put in, and you forget to put an radio air plug in and stuff like that. So whenever you were close to, if there was a yellow and you'd burned off enough fuel that you could take the option strategy-wise to come in, you want to be ready. There's nothing worse than getting that panic call. He's in, and you're looking around the pit box for all of your equipment.
Problems here for the David and Russell Walker driven NOLA Sport car, and this is right as the pit window opens, so this is interesting. So right now, as it stays green, there are teams that can make that call to the pit lane if they want to. It does not, like in years past, there's no mandate that the lead car has to have the first shot to come in. So if you were running a little bit further behind and the window open and you saw a car in strife, there was a chance perhaps to make that dive into the pit lane, and that could play out strategically, and several cars have made that call. Here's Stephen Cameron Racing. Might this be what it takes to get them back into the frame? Sean Quinlan giving it over to Greg Leafouche. Brian Putt will hand over to Kenton Cook. Ross Schwest to Aaron Povolito, among others, as we stay green for now.
That's just the luck of the draw in terms of how the clock is operating, and your lap times is really an advantage if you think about it for some of the Pro-Am lineups to have your AM get into the pits 1 lap earlier. Sometimes there can be a 2-3 second delta between an AM and a Pro driver, so this could be significant in terms of how they roll out of the pits when all of these other cars come in.
So the way the pit stop works, no refueling, no tire change unless there is a problem that you can demonstrate to an official with one of your tires, just the driver change, and you must spend 85 seconds in the pit lane. From pit in to pit out, 85 seconds is the minimum pit stop time here this weekend at Sebring.
Essentially, that's giving you about 45 seconds to do that driver change. You can do some tire pressure adjustments, but here we see a lot of cars bailing now, getting in. The other factor is I'm not sure if that car has been moved from that issue that we were looking at with the Porsche a little while ago. You got to be careful here. If you stay out and suddenly the safety car is sent out there, it's going to slow you down compared to others who have got that pit stop done. And the delta in terms of time loss and gain could be significant.
I think we dodged any bullets of a yellow flag affecting the outcome, because it does show David Walker as in the pit lane. That's the car that had the problem. So that is good news. This is their team car. This is the Pro-Am leading car as far as points are concerned. Matt Travis climbing out, the Texan Jason Hart getting in, trying to clinch a championship with 3 races still left to be run.
Here we see another important pit stop here. This is James Walker, who put in a really solid qualifying run, an opening stint here. Bill Aublin, fastest man in the Pro qualifying session. We'll start from the pole here tomorrow. Aublin, so much success here at the 12 hours over the years, so he knows this racetrack extremely well, probably more experienced than anyone else in this field here today.
In that first round of pit stops, it should be noted that Sean Quinlan and Greg Leafouche, they were right on the money, 85.1 seconds. That's about as good as you can do. We saw Tim Pappas and Jerome Bleekable, and that changeover was pretty close, 85.4 seconds.
Sparta to Carter, just underneath, but you get that 1 second joker. You can be 1 second underneath, no more than that, but just once per weekend. So they've used that one up for the weekend. They gained 1/10 of a second over those other fast stops.
Schwest to Aaron Povolito was quite good. Andrew Davis, Jason Bell changeover was pretty close. Brian Putt to Kenton Cook, they gave up about 3 seconds. They were at 88 seconds.
Probably a little defensive after what happened to them losing a potential win at Watkins Glen by being 1.5 seconds off. And I spoke to Kenton Cook about how that happened. They use a Motec system, so there's like 5 lights in 1 second increments. And Brian basically had his hand a little bit turned, couldn't see the last light. Car went, and the team thought they were in good shape, but he went basically 1 second early and was 1.5 seconds under. They tried to use up 0.5 second of their joker and were 1.5 seconds underneath. Some other teams use what's called the V-box, which lets you give a red or a green as you're leaving pit lane to see if you can adjust that time if you're a little bit short.
Clean stops for Conquest, a little bit slow, 86.3. The Noah Sport stop was good, 85.7. And now we see Stephen McAleer in the pit lane now. That's the overall leader. He'll be handing over to Toby Grahovic.
And I'm not surprised he didn't stay out there a little bit longer. Not that Toby's going to give up a lot of pace, but Stephen was in the groove. Maybe he's coming up on some traffic. They were just analyzing things, playing it a little bit safer as we see the Shimshak to Murillo change happening right now. Christian jumping in, of course. Kenny started the car.
And Amanda, just confirming what you were speculating earlier about how they elected to start the race with the tire pressures, helping them in the long run after slipping back a little bit early.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just going to start them a little bit lower and they get up to their optimum pressure a little bit later in the run, but then they're going to be a little bit more consistent versus over-pressuring by starting higher. High gives you that energy in the tires sooner, gives you the lap time sooner, but then you've got to hang on for the second part of the stint, potentially.
Nice safe pit stop there for Classic BMW. They pitted from a fairly healthy lead, 85.9 seconds, so plenty of wiggle room. Make sure they don't run afoul as Toby Grahovic now gets up to speed.
And that'll factor in too if you feel if we get really close to that minimum stop time, could it gain track position, but when you have a big lead like they have, why risk it? Or why want to extend your lead by a couple of tenths or a second even versus being underneath and getting a penalty?
This has become the battle for the overall lead. James Clay has it, Chris Wilson right behind. That's BMW versus Mercedes respectively. 28 minutes left. This window will close in 3.5 minutes, so they can do one more lap and not run afoul of the pit window.
Car there a little bit sideways. James losing time there. Chris gets a big run off the corner. He's going to try and extend this. Probably can only go one more lap. Otherwise he's going to be out of time, so this should be the final lap for these guys extending the stint.
The requirement is simply to be in the pit lane before the window closes. You can still be doing your service after it closes as long as you have tripped that timing line and entered the pit lane. You are all good as far as that's concerned. So yes, this should be the final flying lap for these two cars. And then we'll have a sense for how the pit window affected the running order.
Yep, it's all about these in and out laps. Do you hit any traffic? Are the tires overpressured? Are you still getting good performance from these Pirelli P0s versus another driver getting out there, having to get into a rhythm, but with tires that may be pressured back towards their optimum?
Let's give credit to Auto Technic. The change from Tom Capizzi to John Capestro-Dubets, 85.063 seconds. That's about perfect, without using the joker at least.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And so many of these teams get better and they kind of fine-tune their systems as we get deeper into the season. Certainly at the opening rounds, everyone's a little bit rusty and haven't really got on top of the systems, and maybe teams have switched different cars, different electronic systems, so it takes a while to get in that groove.
James Clay feeling the pressure here from Chris Wilson. Final lap for these two in these race cars before they'll hand it over to their respective co-drivers.
See the BMW there just using more of the road. He's having to work harder, whereas that Mercedes is still carving the corners really nicely. That just means you're overworking the tires a little bit more with the BMW.
How challenging is this pit entry at Sebring?
Well, it is challenging because you got to get back over to the right, and if you try and squeeze a little bit more speed rolling through the apex here and underneath the bridge, you don't want to hit a bump just as you're pinching your hands to turn the car right. So better to be a little bit safer there. And it's nice when you're the guy behind, you can kind of gauge off the person in front of you what they're doing and how hard they're hitting those bumps.
All right, here they come, the last two of the front runners to make their pit lane call, James Clay and Chris Wilson. Bimmer World Racing and Capstone Motorsports, respectively. Now it's Nick Galante getting in, taking over for James. And John Barry making his series debut, professional racing debut. Will get in the Capstone Mercedes here momentarily. Let's go down to pit lane and Amanda.
Well, as he gets in the car right here, he's actually wearing John Allen's fire suit as he kicks off his debut here in Pirelli GT4. His team just did the motion with their hands of like, calm down, and reminded him to breathe. But Cal, as a driver, you get the call in on Thursday that you're going to be racing in a race with the team here, not only at a racetrack, but of Sebring of all places. What's going through your mind?
Well, a lot of anticipation, obviously. You're excited, but when it's go time, you're going to be standing there just itching to go, and a heartbeat will be raised. A lot of adrenaline going right now, so I think the team are doing the right thing in terms of trying to talk him through this. And this will be critical, this outlap, how he filters back out with traffic. Ideally, you'd like to have no one on your tail. You want to be in the mix, but you don't want someone hounding you, and that's putting the pressure on to not make that critical error.
Oh, here's some side-by-side racing going on a little bit further back, but here we go. These two leaving the pits just as they came in. Here comes the Murillo car at speed. That will be Christian Shimshak. I think he should be able to get in front of Nick Galante, and he does so.
Yeah, nice gap there for John Berry, so we can see those cars up ahead of him, just try and find his rhythm right now. They're in a great position. If he can just run really good, clean laps, maybe they can grab a win here for his debut.
And a nice, solid lead in the AM class coming into the pit window thanks to that great stint from Chris Wilson. So now his job is to hold on to that. Let's see what Galante can do. Trying to get up to speed. His first lap out of the pit. Shimshak's had one to get warmed up, get those tires up to operating temperature. Of course, it is the same set they started on, so it should be pretty close. It's not like it's a brand new set or something like that. But having that one extra lap of data to fall back on if you're Shimshak relative to Galante, that's a huge boost when you're battling on an outlap.
Yeah, I mean, it can, depending on the driver, it could be a few tenths or it could be a second to 2 seconds in terms of how a driver settles back down. Some people are just able to hit that switch and be right on it. Other people like to gradually work up to the threshold, up to the limit, feel their way back into this race. But this is what's so cool about this form of racing with the mandatory pit stop. You're going to be starting one race, but the other race you're going to be thrown right in the middle of the action.
It's shaping up to be a great race for Murillo Racing also. They came in as the points leaders in the silver class by 32 tallies over Cole Carvalho and Tim Barber, and that car is a ways down the order. So with Shimshak right now 4th in silver, and the potential to improve on that here in his stint, that should go a long way to helping them get closer to that magic number before this weekend is over.
They need to keep pushing though, because this number 11 car, they're coming out the woods a little bit, didn't compete at the opening rounds of the championship, had a couple of bobbles along the way, but when they don't have issues, boy, they always seem to be right there with a threat for the win, looking for their 3rd win on the championship season.
Let's keep an eye on this. Colin Mullen's pace relative to Toby Grahovic on that last lap, and I don't know if traffic had something to do with it, but we're talking about 2 seconds faster favoring this car. Colin Mullen, Conquest Racing West, the team. Eric Bachelard, longtime IndyCar and sports car team owner, putting this program together. We saw Mackay Stevens giving them a great run early, and now Colin Mullen, the silver class champion in this series 1 year ago with Andretti Autosport, giving this car a nice ride.
Yeah, coming off 2 runner-up finishes at the Glen, been a factor ever since they showed up in our paddock. And he has got the pace right now with a lot of time left on the board to chase down Toby Grahovic and put the pressure on him for their first win. And certainly you'd have to feel that Murillo and Shimshak will kind of be cheering them on a little bit, because they'd love for Grahovic and Macklin not to score the big points here today.
Also cheering this car on, a big race fan, recovering from some surgery, a 3rd grader, David Lean. We wish you the best. I know you're a big fan of Collins watching this broadcast. We wish you a speedy recovery. And I'm sure a big smile on your face right now. Colin Mullen, Kai Stevens, and Conquest Racing West giving this Mercedes a great ride.
Great tails away. You can hear them crack the throttle down a gear to get through that sector there. It's really quick through there. About 140 miles an hour with these GT4 cars even.
Here's some Aston Martin on Aston Martin violence going on. We've got Aaron Povolito leading Ian James. I think this 3R Povolito Racing team that Aaron is managing and driving for, along with Ross West, was the story of the weekend in a lot of respects at Watkins Glen, a team that was thrown together in about a week and a half. A car that the team never saw until they got on site. They had some help from Dexter Racing to get it prepped, and they had a couple of podiums, very nearly had more than that, with some really strong runs.
Povolito's not waiting around as he dives. Excuse me, that's the 15 car. That's Ken Cook.
Yep. Getting around Cole Carvalho.
There.
Now switch to a different Aston. Then we got the 2 Astons at the back of that picture with Aaron Povolito leading Ian James. But that was a great move from Kenton Cook, who is on a march forward. Not a great starting position for this race, Calvin, but Brian Putt did what he needed to do, and now they're running on the fringe of the top 10 overall in 12th and 7th in Pro-Am.
chat with Kendon yesterday about Brian's progress. Won the TCR Cup back in 2019, then made that transition up to GT4. And he said he's doing very, very well, just really working hard on his diet, taking things very seriously. And certainly he's been doing some karting as well. They're just trying to get him to slow down his hands a little bit. He's actually getting blisters with a power-assisted steering on a race car, and he said he's just gripping things too tight, just getting him to relax a little bit, and it's really showing in the results.
Just should note that the Auto Technic car, John Capestro-Dubets, has dropped massively down the order, was running near the top 10, and is now back in 18th and 12th in class. Also saw Bill Oberlin drop a couple of positions from a similar place on the road, so not sure you could put 2 and 2 together, but perhaps you can, as we see a issue for the automatic racing Aston. This is the fight for the lead, which is going to be on well and truly here very, very soon, as Mullen took another 2 seconds out of the gap on the last lap, and he is there. Toby Grahovic has his hands full.
He does. He's got a big problem because that Mercedes is really hooked up, just running really consistent 2:13.7s. About half a second off the fastest lap of this race, which was just taken by Greg Leafuge aboard that Stephen Cameron Racing BMW at 2:13.2. Now for Mullen, he's got to factor in, you can't afford to buy too much time. If there's an incident, you could suddenly find yourself with a race that's finishing under caution, so he's got to pounce relatively quickly.
Out of Sunset Bend, Grahovic goes defensive, forcing Mullen to try and go the long way around. Mullen not close enough to do it on this lap. Slots in line, headed into this sweeping turn 1, very fast, blinded corner entry, takes a great deal of commitment, bouncing over those bumps. Here comes Mullen now, late on the brakes, charging in, headed into this tight, twisty portion of the lap.
And you're right about Oberlin. Both he and Capestro-Dubets ran lap times there about 11-12 seconds off the leaders, so you'd have to think they either had spins independently or together.
I think it was a drive-through penalty. Both of them perhaps running afoul of the pit stop time is the information I just received. Not a mistake you often see from either of those teams. That has them further down. Here comes Colin Mullen, though, right there on the rear wing of Toby Grahovic. Toby, the veteran, outstanding hockey player in his youth. He's used to throwing elbows. He may need to keep Mullen at bay, and that's actually letting Jason Hart close in as well. Not too far behind this picture. You can see the Nola Sport Porsche closing in.
Here we go, down to the inside. It's going to be tight. Squeezes through there. Toby has to give it up.
Awesome pass from Colin Mullen, reigning silver champion in Pirelli GT4 America.
Just getting back to this pit stop time. The Bimmerworld Oberlin Walker stop was not underneath, so maybe there was another type of infraction during that pit stop. See a yellow waving for the 09 Aston Martin there. That's through turn 14.
Maybe it was the Auto Technic drive-through was for the pit stop, but it was a drive-through evidently issued to Oberlin. Might have been for something different. We'll try and get that information if at all possible. But Conquest Racing, in just its 3rd race weekend in this new reconstituted form, is at the front of the field. Let's head to the pit lane and hear more from Amanda.
And you can imagine the excitement you can hear here from the team at Conquest. And Makai, it was the tail of the dragon for you at Watkins Glen. How do you slay the beast that is known as Sebring?
Well, I mean, here at Sebring, yet another beast to conquer, but this organization, the guys and gals of Conquest Racing West, JMF Motorsport, we owe everything that we're able to do on track to these guys. And we're just exceptionally grateful to be here, going up against stout competition in a wonderful series.
It's only your 3rd event, kicked off at Road America. How have you guys got up to speed so quickly?
Really, trusting each other, and that's really it. Trusting each other, trusting the process, taking it one corner at a time.
It's been a great story watching them get up to speed so quickly, and now poised perhaps not just for their first win in class, but possibly an overall win, although I think Jason Hart's got other ideas. These 2 cars in front of him, though, Calvin, as we talked about, these are out-of-class cars. Now, again, the difference in the classes is all FIA driver ranking. The cars themselves have the same performance window. There's no difference there. But if you're Jason Hart, leading your class, trying to clinch that championship. How much do you want to battle with two out-of-class cars for first and second overall?
Well, if it was me, I'd say, based on having had that heartbreak for a couple of years, just bring it home where he is. But the racer's instinct kicks in, and we saw Matt Travis in the opening stint to this race for the 47 NOLA Sport Porsche. He was one to give it a go, and it seems like Jason Hart is very much on the charge. I mean, you're always looking back as to whether you can be caught. Bleeker Molin's got a really strong car underneath him. He currently runs second in the Pro-Am class, but he's like 14 seconds behind Jason with 14 minutes to go. So you'd think he could just settle in, sit here, follow Toby home, but maybe he's thinking just get by Toby and then settle in behind the leader and bring it home there. And that might almost be enough, looking at the order right now, to bring the championship home tonight.
Again, just needs to have a 75-point lead leaving this race to make that points lead insurmountable. And what a celebration it would be. That's a fun-loving bunch to begin with. And again, exercising some of the demons of seasons past, where championships have slipped through their fingers. But from start to finish, even though there's been a bit of a swoon in the midpoint of the season, haven't won in quite a while, this has been a consistent team, and it's hard to find too many down weekends.
Oh, Toby's wide.
Yep.
Just sliding up BMW a little bit, has given up on him some. This is what McAleer anticipated happening in this race today. And that extra 10 kilos, if it's going to have an effect, it would be kicking in right now towards the last 25% of this race.
Toby Grahovic, series veteran, one of just a handful of drivers that was here the last time this series raced at Sebring back in 2009. Different nomenclature at the time, but same DNA. As Hart looks up the inside, trying to find a way past into the hairpin, has to back out of it though.
Yep, he's not going to take a silly risk here. He's just going to look for something legitimate and try and make it happen.
Just 12 minutes left in the race. Leaders in their respective classes. Colin Mullen leads in silver in overall. Jason Hart, the Porsche you're looking at here, third overall, first in class. And the leader in AM still John Barry. But he's running a little bit off the pace relative to some of those around him. The good news, though, is that it's a long way back to Al Carter and Random Vandals Racing, who runs second right now in the AM class, so it might yet be enough for a win on debut. We'll keep an eye on that.
Jason peeked to the inside there. That would be super risky making a move through there. Such high speed, and if you touch the other car, you're going to send him for a ride and probably draw a penalty. But right now, looking at the points as they run, I believe this 47 car could be in position here, just sealing the deal in the championship, which would be a wonderful accomplishment for that group that's come so close, as we now see the draft here down to the inside and just takes it in a little bit deeper. Toby made it easy on him. I think he felt that he's just got to try and get this car home to the finish here and solidify that second position. Mullen's way down the road right now, so I think Toby's probably looking back and thinking about what does he need to do to hang home with Shimshak there in his rearview mirror.
That's right, so Shimshak, the orange Mercedes at the back end of the shot, currently third in silver, so that's what Grahovic needs to keep in mind as he tries to hold on to second in that class, having just lost second overall to Jason Hart. This is, at the back of this train is Barry, who we were talking about earlier, making his series debut, pro racing debut. He was handed the car in the lead thanks to Chris Wilson's great stint. And right now, doing enough to hang on to the lead in the AM class.
Really nice job. Exactly what they wanted from him, just good clean laps, no mistakes. Handy lead over the second place in AM right now.
But it is closing. He dropped a bunch of spots overall on that last lap, 6 of them, in fact, and his running, he ran a 2:21 on that lap. Most of the other cars are in the 2:15, 2:16 range.
Yeah, that's not good. It'll make you sweat a little bit.
Yeah.
And it talked about the thoughts of a driver coming in on debut. Well, suddenly you got the leads. That's a different type of pressure. And how comfortable are you if the team is saying you need a bit more pace? How comfortable are you with this last-minute call to push that Mercedes a little bit more than you're doing at the moment?
He doesn't have much track time in the car, certainly not here, not this weekend, because it was John Allen we expected to see, and John did the test day and some of the practicing until making the decision to sit this one out. Tough situation to get called in off the bench like that.
Carter's not that far behind, so he's got to keep pushing.
That would be a big deal for Random Vandals Racing. Al Carter driving now. Paul Sparta started that car. He had a little spin and some contact in testing on Thursday. They were chasing an intercooler issue with some wiring. It was just one pesky little wire, and that's all it takes. And they basically had to climb down into the engine bay to try and resolve that issue, and they did it just before one of the sessions, or else they were going to lose some serious track time as we see the 619 go around.
It's Todd behind the wheel. It's damaged the right rear, so looks like it's towing out to me. Quick glance at the right side of the car, so may have got punched there on the entry to the corner.
Yep. That's John Capestra Dubets in the Autotechnic car.
Probably a little bit of desperation going on there. Very much in the championship picture coming off some really solid weekends at Road America and at Watkins Glen. That drive-through penalty and just trying to cut through the field as quickly as he can.
On a streak of 4 consecutive podiums, which included an overall win in race 1 of the weekend at Watkins Glen, but it's not been their day. The drive-through penalty and now some contact, as we saw a moment ago. Okay, this is the AM class battle about to shape up. Capstone Motorsports coming through. This is an out-of-class car, and then the BMW following. The green BMW for Random Vandals Racing currently runs second in the class, and Al Carter, he can smell it now. He sees that Mercedes up the road and knows exactly what he needs to do. He's got 8 minutes to get it done.
Yeah, Berry's lap there, he's down to 2:19. Carter's running 2:16s on that lap anyway, so plenty of time, but again, there's an incident late in the race. You're not necessarily going to have all of the time that you see on the clock right now to work with, so you got to keep pushing as hard as you can. And they're just in it for wins. They're not in the championship picture. They just want to win this race.
Best finish on the season. Paul Sparta had a different co-driver in VIR, but they finished second and third. Al couldn't make that race. His best finish was a third in race 1 at Circuit of the Americas within the AM class. Looking for their first win together. First season for the team in pro racing after doing a lot of endurance racing at the amateur level. Having Connor Daly as their co-driver for some of it, and that's where the connection comes. He's driving for the team, as mentioned earlier, at the Indianapolis 8-hour coming up in 2 weeks' time.
This is where the experience of Al Carter comes into play. Like, how hard do you push to get around Sorello, or do you allow both of you to close in on that AM leader, Berry, aboard this number 16 Capstone Racing Mercedes?
Al has been there before. He's won the 24 Hours of Daytona in class back in 2015 in a Viper. So he's been in some high-pressure situations. Knows exactly what he needs to do, but he's got an out-of-class car in front of him. That's Cole Corallo running a decent pace in the CCR Team TFB BMW. Now Al's going to try and clear him in the run down the Goldman Straight into Sunset Bend, and he can't get by. Boy, that's music to the ears of the Capstone team.
Yeah, but they're getting closer. Both of them are getting closer, so then he's got to really allow Corallo to go to work on Berry and then go on the attack for the class lead.
While this is going on, Mullen has pulled out to a 3.8-second lead. Toby Grahovic runs third overall, but second in silver, and is starting to be caught by Christian Shimshak. That's down to under 3 seconds. This, though, is the fight for the class lead with one car in between. Cole Corallo splitting the top 2 in AM. This is Shimshak, who's making some progress running down Grahovic, and Jerome Bleekemolen is flying. He might be the fastest car on the track here over the last few laps in this Porsche Cayman, right behind the one that Tim Pappas started and had a great stint running in the top 10 until handing it over to the Rapid Dutchman Jerome.
Here we go.
So this is Corallo out of class, but that now removes the out of class traffic and brings Al Carter to the back door.
He's got to look backwards as well. Andy Lee's having a good run there.
Here he comes.
He's
Carter
down
to the outside.
That's for the lead.
Yep. Random Vandals Racing to the point. Al Carter makes the pass on John Barry, who has to settle in second in his debut race in SRO America.
That's okay, though. He'll knock the rust off here today and come back tomorrow a little bit stronger. He'll be starting the race tomorrow, of course, as you switch the starting lineups throughout the whole field.
A huge effort from Random Vandals Racing, as mentioned, dealing with that electrical issue that had them flummoxed for quite a while, but they found the fix. Great stint from Paul Sparta. Now Al Carter has that beautiful green BMW M4 GT4 in the lead.
Yeah, they're going to be excited. Al loves his racing, isn't running on as a consistent basis as he was a handful of years ago, but fierce competitor.
54-year-old from Claymont, Delaware. He's been in a number of big races over the years. Very capable behind the wheel, and he and Paul Sparta, they've been working together for several years now. Quite a team they have proven to be.
Grahovic has responded a little bit. Shimshak had taken 3 seconds out of that gap on the previous tour, but now settled down a little bit. But there's enough time on the board here for Shimshak to go on the attack. But he's looking behind at someone who's out of class. Bleekemolen's a little bit quicker.
But you're exactly right. Bleekemolen and Pappas are Pro-Am. The two cars in front are silver. It's a big gap to Jason Hart, who runs in second, but is the leader in Pro-Am with just 3.5 minutes to go. I'm not sure that's in reach for Bleekemolen. The Murillo Racing Brain Trust looks on. Ken Murillo and Kenny, father and son, next to each other, looking at the laptop.
This is important too, because essentially that 11 car, one of their closest challenges in the championship table, even though they're in pretty strong shape just from where they're running right now. And if they can finish even in that third position, it'll be solid points today. But they'd love to get the twofer. You're taking points away and gaining points in a championship contender. Big run down this back stretch. This is the Ullman Straight. Tucked into the draft there of the BMW, peaks to the inside, but watch Bleekemolen. Christian has to be aware of that. There's going to be a couple of laps to go here still, so still some time on the board.
And maybe there's the chance to follow Jerome through now that he's made the pass. Colin Mullen out in front by nearly 5 seconds now over Jason Hart. You got to drop back 13 seconds to find this battle. Second place in silver, Toby Grahovic. Second place in Pro-Am, Jerome Bleekemolen. Third place in silver, Christian Shimshak, all running together.
A little twitch there through turn one as Bleekemolen hit that compression. He's really trying to roll speed. I think he has thought about setting up Grahovic for a move down into turn three into that brake zone. Wasn't quite close enough. Grahovic there, up and over the curbs. That seems where he's vulnerable. Just trying to get the power down. I think he's struggling for grip right now late in the run.
Bleekemolen around the outside through Big Bend. He's got the run. Can he get up alongside the BMW? Late on the brakes. Jerome Bleekemolen sweeps around to move into third overall and now has a minute and a half, 1.5 laps basically, to try and catch Jason Hart for second. That's probably too tall a task, so the fight becomes this one. Toby Grahovic holding second in silver. Christian Shimshak trying to take it away.
Championship leader, Shimshak, in the silver class. As we said, get this position. You're not only gaining 3 points, you're gaining 6. Taking 3 away and gaining 3 with this one position if he can make it stick. Looks to the outside. That's the danger zone. You can get wiped out there. You got to be careful. But Toby, super courteous there and giving a little bit of racing room.
Toby made that possible, didn't he? Shimshak is through. He takes over second. While all of this has been going on, by the way, we should note, somewhat unheralded, Greg Leafouche has put on a drive, and suddenly Stephen Cameron Racing finds themselves 6th overall and 3rd in Pro-Am. And that's important in terms of trying to stay in the hunt for the championship. Would it be enough to make the fight go one day longer, Cal?
I don't think so, but we'll analyze the points here in a little bit. But I think that I think Jason Hart and Travis are in pretty good shape here. We'll take a look.
Coming by to take the white flag. It's already been shown to Colin Mullen, who leads this race overall. Jason Hart has come through. Bleekemolen takes it now, and Shimshak ahead of Grahovic at the back of the top 5. And there is the car we were talking about. Greg Leofouge doing everything in his power, trying to keep this championship alive.
Yeah, he needs another position. I think he's 77 points behind. 75-point lead would seal it over this car anyway. Got to look at other competitors in the field. So Nola Sport looking good, even though Greg Leofouge has been on the charge here.
Here is the leader, Colin Mullen. Ran down Toby Grahovic, made the pass, and has not looked back. This brand new team in just its 5th race in Pirelli GT4 America. Although Conquest does have some previous experience, this is really a different crew. Still headed up, though, by Eric Bachelard. We saw one of those picture-in-picture shots a few moments ago when interviewing Mackay Stevens. He knows how to put a winning program together, and I think they've hit on something with this Silver Cup lineup. Colin Mullen proved it last year. Stevens was maybe more of the question mark because he'd not been in a race car at the high level for a number of years, but he's been on pace. Colin's been on pace, and they're in line for their first win.
Yeah, huge. When you put quality people together, and that's the great thing about this form of competition, the GT4 cars from these manufacturers, pretty much turnkey race cars. And yeah, you got to tune on them a little bit and get them into their sweet spot, but nonetheless, if you put the right ingredients together, you can bake the perfect cake, it seems.
2nd overall, but leading in Pro-Am, on their way potentially to clinching a championship. It's been long awaited. Nola Sport right now runs in that position. To the leader, though, through turn 17 for the final time, Colin Mullen. Round Sunset Bend, looking for the checkered flag just up the road, and it waves. Conquest Racing picks up their first win of the 2021 season. Matt Travis looks on as Jason Hart crosses the line. That is another Pro-Am win and provisionally a championship clinched for Nola Sport with 3 rounds yet to go.
It's tight, but I think they might have sealed it by a couple of points over 2 of their nearest competitors. I bet Matt Travis knows.
He's an accountant after all. Yes, indeed. This is Stephen Cameron Racing doing everything they could. What a drive through the field for Greg Leofouge to bring that car home 6th overall on the podium in Pro-Am, but it looks like it's not going to be enough to keep them in the title fight. Nick Galante holding on to 4th in Pro-Am in the car that James Clay started. Warren Dexter in the Dexter Racing Aston, a nice run to 8th and 4th in silver. How about it? Let's hear from the world's fastest accountant. Matt Travis is with Amanda.
Well, you call them an accountant. They had the calculators out here trying to do the points here in the last 5 minutes, and we're calling it a provisional championship, but from your math, I think you know that you are now a champion. We saw you pacing those last 5 minutes. Describe the moment of learning that you are now a champion.
Yeah, I don't even know. We didn't think this was even within the realm of possibility today. What a freaking fairy tale race this was. I can't believe it. This one's been 3 years coming. Usually we find a way to bring it down to the wire, but man, to be standing here, I can't freaking believe it.
When you see Matt, what are you going to say to him?
You know, Jason and I, we've been racing together a long time, and it's been a hell of a partnership. We go together like Chinese food and chocolate pudding, or cocaine and waffles, or peanut butter and ladies. Peanut butter and ladies. Anyway, so I'm going to give him a big-ass hug. I'm thrilled. Unbelievable.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
Apologies for the language and subject matter. For those who don't know, Matt likes his movie quotes, and all of that comes from a movie. We'll leave it there. You can't blame him, though. After the heartbreak of the last 2 seasons, Calvin, you kind of had to feel for him. I tell him every time, you don't have to make it that interesting for us. And he pledged he wasn't going to this year, and I'd say he served on that promise.
You can see there Jason doing everything that you need to do. He's running off-road, trying to get some marbles on those tires. There's some minimum requirements that you need to meet in post-race tech. One of them is ride height, so you kind of snowball those tires a little bit. Add a bit of weight to the car as well, but it's all legit. And this will be sweet.
Yes, it will. We should also note, by the way, Random Vandals Racing with their maiden win in Pirelli GT4 America competition. Al Carter did hold off John Barry by about 5 seconds to pick up the victory in the AM class. John Jesbray and Kevin Conway on the podium once again. They come home third, so another strong run for them as they look to try and clinch that title. And that might be some math to do here before it's all said and done, also with another podium run for Smooge Racing. But what a season it's been for NOLA Sport, and to clinch it with 3 races to go, it speaks to the level of consistency they've had. I was starting to say it earlier in the broadcast, Calvin. It's difficult to find a bad weekend for them. They might not have had as many wins in recent races, but other than the fact that they had to skip race 1 at Watkins Glen for Matt's sister's wedding, there's really not been too many poor point scoring outings for that pairing all season long as we look at the provisional results.
And I think the key for them, we've seen it in the previous seasons where they didn't quite capture the championship, was coming out the box strong. I mean, the cars are always impeccably maintained, but from a performance factor too, they put out really fast race cars, NOLA Sport does, with the engineering group that they have there. So they get off to these fast starts. They haven't been able to hang on, but this year, too much for everyone else.
So I don't believe we've got anything clinched yet in the AM class, because Chris Wilson was second in those points coming in, and he, along with John Barry, finished ahead of Smooge Racing. So that leaves them in a position to fight again for that title tomorrow. Look at the top 15 here in the race results. Just behind that is where you find the top 3 in AM. There they are, 18th, 19th, and 20th, all basically running there together.
I think it is a clinch.
Oh, all right.
It is a clinch for Conway and Jesbray. They came in with, you know, almost a 100-point lead, so they only needed 75 coming out of here, so I think they're good.
All right. I trust Calvin's math over my own, so we might have 2 titles already decided here this weekend. There's the bottom half of the finishing order, a few teams and cars that had some issues over the course of the day today. But at the front, we've got a first-time winning team in Colin Mullen, Mackay Stevens, and Conquest Racing. We've got Jason Hart, yet to speak to him after clinching a title, and a first-time winner in AM. So I think we're going to have several happy teams and drivers to interview down there at Victory Lane here at Sebring. CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, by the way, and it went to Greg Leafouche. That happened in the second stint on the same set of tires, so that's remarkable stuff. It goes to show just how good that Stephen Cameron Racing car was in the race here today. 2:13, 2:60, the fastest lap of the race. And they come home in the 6th position overall, or sorry, in class, or overall, yes, in 3rd in class. So they will stand on the podium yet again. And Calvin, we do it again tomorrow, but it's going to look a lot different just based on the qualifying results, because the drivers that started race 1 today, they go second tomorrow and vice versa. And it's a mixed-up grid, as we're used to seeing.
It is, and a couple of teams that really didn't have solid days. The Auto Technique number 52 came into this race with a slim chance at the championship. They had a bad day. The Bimmer World car of Oberlin and Walker qualified well. James had a good run, but Oberlin a troubled stint there. So he'll start from the pole tomorrow looking for better things.
I think we saw a pretty good equality between manufacturers in this too. A number of different brands were up there mixing it up. Porsche, BMW, Aston Martin was in the mix for a time, among others. So Mercedes for sure as well. Let's hear from some of our race winners with Amanda.
Well, and just their 5th race here in GT4. Colin, you pick up the win. Describe coming around Sunset Bend and seeing that checkered flag.
It's just unbelievable. You know, this team has done such an amazing job, and just our few races here. I mean, the progress we've made since our starting race at Road America is just exponential. You know, the team makes our job look easy behind the wheel. Having guys like Ian Willis, Mitch Davis, and, you know, all of our crew on the team, they really put the effort in to give us a good car here, and you know, we're able to win today on some good tire management and had some great pace at the end. And you know, it's just a testament to the team and the work that we put in, and Mercedes-AMG for giving us an amazing car here to do that with. So it's just overall, it feels amazing to be back on the overall podium in SRO here.
Mackay, Colin, you guys won this driving ability on a shootout. When you look at you're going to stand at the top step of that podium. What does this win symbolize for you?
I think it symbolizes that belief within yourself is critical to your forward progress. And both Colin and I just nearly, brings you to tears because you have so many people to thank outside of who we are for this very moment. So I think it's testament to the beautiful people in this world.
Enjoy the celebration.
Thank you. And we absolutely wouldn't be here without John Farrow as well, who makes this whole program happen. So we're eternally grateful to John for really putting this together. Thank you so much.
Now for Mackay Stevens, I don't know the last time he stood on top of a podium. He's not raced in a pro or something close to pro environment since he ran USF 2000 in 2016. And he gets that done. Colin Mullen won 4 times last year, paired with Jared Andretti, so he knows his way to the top step. But what a pairing those two have turned into in a short amount of time.
Super impressive effort all the way around, and I think Mackay put it into perspective there in terms of you got to keep believing, even when the opportunity is not right there, you suddenly get that call. But the key is then showing up and getting the job done, and they certainly have done that.
Well, their finishes in the silver class through this part of the season, they've done 5 races. They finished 4th, 3rd, second, and now a win.
Yeah, that's pretty stout.
Impressive stuff to get this program underway, and you got to wonder what the future holds. John Farrow, by all accounts, is in it for the long haul. He's got big-time plans for this team, and again, to try and help elevate young talent that have the talent but don't have the resources behind them. So much of racing is built on the benevolence of motorsports enthusiasts who have the wherewithal to do exactly that, and he's not unique in that aspect, but it's always great to see some fresh blood with that kind of passion entering into the sport.
And I think the series entices that because, as we said before, if you put all the right pieces in place, you can have success.
Let's hear from more of our race winners in Victory Lane with Amanda.
All right, well, I am holding on for this one of the movie quote that's going to be coming my way, guys. But, Jason, we talked to Matt. They were by the guardrail cheering you on. You guys have been close to this moment. You get it done a whole event ahead of time. Describe this season for yourself.
I mean, I just got to be right now in the moment. The only way to explain it is I'm happier than a tornado in a trailer park. I mean, I'm just tearing it up out there. And the car was perfect. The team does a great job. I'm looking at the ground because I just can't believe it, right? We've worked so hard for this and we came close 2 years in a row. And John Sherrick, the owner of the team, Scott Best, James, the head mechanic on the 47, and literally every single member. If we lost a single member of our team, we would feel it. Every single person is that important, and that's near and dear. And then Matt for always hanging out with me at the racetrack for all this time. I mean, lucky guy I am, lucky fucking guy. Oops.
You guys make us laugh at each race weekend. What makes this pairing so successful?
It's chemistry, right? I mean, it's just we have a good time together. We're friends off the track. We cut up off the track, not even talking about racing. So I think we just see eye to eye and we just have a good time. And he's a very focused individual. I'm a very focused individual. My father was a Marine. That's how I was raised. So I'm pretty regimented on my driver training and coaching. But it works for folks that enjoy just the absolute reality all the time.
Well, you guys earned this championship. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Again, apologies for the language, but 3 years in the making, a lot of emotion, and a pairing that likes to cut it up, as we heard Jason say. They are about as fun-loving a group as you can find.
A lot of passion there and just excellence. I mean, they've been performing at a very high level now for 3 consecutive seasons, and the title is well-deserved.
Certainly so. Let's look back at how this race unfolded. Highlights of race 1 of the weekend from Sebring coming your way. This was the start. Stephen McAleer got a nice jump. Matt Travis, though, an impressive qualifying effort to start 2nd overall, and he held on to that spot.
He did. Here we see a nice move by Gray Newell down to the inside there. Not easy to make it happen, just displayed a lot of patience and poise in finishing that off.
Yeah, great fight here between Kevin Conway and Gray Newell. Vastly different levels of experience between those two. Kitten Cook up the inside of Tim Barber right there. And this was the fight for the overall lead. Toby Grahovic, after the pit stop, taking over for McAleer, dueling with Colin Mullen, and Colin set him up beautifully.
Yeah, nice clean move there over into Tower Corner. Not an easy place to make a move. And here's your own Bleeker Mullen on the charge through the field. nice runner-up finish in Pro-Am here today.
And on the overall podium as well, that's a bold move up the inside of Christian Shimshak, now around the outside of Toby Grahovic as well. Black Swan Racing announcing their return to the series in style.
Yeah, really impressive. Tim Pappas had an excellent opening stint here to really set up this drive for Giron. And then finally, Christian Shimshak gets the run around the outside, which is unusual there at Tower Corner, but gets inside and takes away that second position in the silver class.
Up front, though, winners in silver, winners overall for the first time this season. Conquest Racing West, Colin Mullen and Mackay Stevens. Then the Pro-Am winners, Jason Hart and Matt Travis. Not only the class win, but the class championship clinched with 3 rounds still to go. And let's head down to the pit lane. We've got one more interview to go. Amanda is standing by.
And Ryan, that is with your AM class winners. And Paul, we stopped by and visited you yesterday, and you were just talking about the challenges and the difficulties your team has faced. One of your team members was actually sitting on the engine trying to chase down a problem yesterday. Getting this win for your team, how momentous is that for you guys?
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, we were so behind the 8 ball yesterday. We didn't practice at all. We missed both first 2 sessions and, didn't get that many laps. And then, but, we had pace. The car was good. And I mean, it's just awesome that we were able to put it together today and just have a nice, clean race, and it was competitive from out of the gate. So it just feels so great.
You talk about the competitiveness of this race, Al. I have to ask you, what was going through your mind when you saw that capstone Mercedes in front of you?
Well, I knew that Chris had put in a great stint, and I knew getting in the car that they were going to be way down the road, and Sebring, was just trying to turn laps, and I was just keeping my head down and trying to go for him. And then when I did see him, I was like, hello. So, a big shout out to the crew. They've been going through a lot here for the last couple races. The team, our progression has been great. We just haven't had the results to show for it. So I'm really proud to, put the whole Random Vandals up on P1. And big shout out to SRO and Pirelli and AWS. I mean, what a field that we have, and just the cars that are out there and the racing is it's pretty badass. So I'm proud to be here.
Congratulations.
Now, great show in Pirelli GT4 America today. That's no exception if you've been with us all season long. That's the way it's been from the drop of the green flag back at Sonoma. Well, that is race 1 of the weekend. Race 2 comes your way tomorrow. Still a busy day of racing yet to come at Sebring. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.